I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, which is about funding your startup. This is hosted by Investera. To tell you a bit about us, we are an investment management and leading market research platform in the MENA and GCC. I am Joy Shukair, and I'm the FinTech Marketing Advisor at Investera. I will be your moderator for this discussion. As you know, we will be discussing everything related to startups, funding sources, as well as strategies for launching and funding startups. The discussion is set to be approximately 45 to 50 minutes, with the final 10 to 15 minutes allocated for the audience to ask questions or add any further comments. I'm going to start by introducing our experienced panelists. So first, allow me to welcome Ms. Shahad Joffrey. She is the co-founder and CEO at Tafi Inc. with a degree in finance from INSEC University in France. Her expertise are not limited to indirect to consumer brands, but she has extensive experience as an investment analyst at top venture capital firms in the Silicon Valley. Our second panelist is Mr. Hassan Haidar, who is a founder and managing partner at Plus VC. This is an early stage venture capital firm in the MENA region, and he has over 10 years of experience investing in MENA startups, having invested in over 180 startups across the region during this period. Last but not least, our third speaker is Mr. Athbi Al-Anzi. He's a CEO and co-founder of Just Clean, and he has been nominated in Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2020. Prior to him establishing Just Clean, his experience focused on both the hospitality and the banking sector. So we're very excited to have these professionals join us, and we look forward to see where this discussion is going to lead. I'm going to start this discussion by asking Athbi the first question. In your opinion, when it comes to building your own startup, what are some steps you believe are essential to be done prior to you building the startup?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel. It's a very interesting question because I'll go back to 4 years ago when we started our startup, Just Clean, after moving back from the UK to Kuwait. We quickly realized that there was a huge market for laundry. It's untapped because then everyone was moving into the food industry and the hauling industry, but the laundry industry was very unorganized. So based on my experience, what we had to do is, first of all, was a ground study. That was very important. For us to be able to convince, before we convince investors or anything, you have to be convinced yourself that what you're going to be putting your money into is going to be making good revenue in the coming future. And also, is there going to be people interested to invest into this industry itself? You've got to look at what kind of movements have been happening in that industry before you tap into it. In terms of issues, in terms of why hasn't anyone gone into it yet, in terms of how big is it, and the market study, the market research, what issues are you going to face as you scale? Because it could be easy to start at the beginning in the industry, but when you want to scale this industry, what issues are you going to face? Because normally as an entrepreneur and as a founder of a startup, that sometimes the passion and the excitement can get the best of you at times, and you don't see the clear signs in front of you. However, it also comes down to gut feeling. It comes down to the right place at the right time. It's essential that you do your study first and what costs you're going to need to start your business. For example, you're going to need to rent an office. Are you going to what investments you're going to need for at least to run for a year? For example, if you're going to start your business on your own without any funding to begin with, because I believe receiving investment is one thing, but receiving investment on an idea is another thing. I believe it's much easier if you can prove the concept at the beginning and let it generate some traction, let it generate some money. I think people will be more welcoming to listen to this idea. I think it's very tough to convince someone at the beginning with just an idea, because once you've put your own money into it and own time into it, people are going to consider that a lot. And once it's gaining traction and movement, they're going to take you more seriously. Because most of the time, people don't just invest in the idea or the startup or the business itself. 90% of the time, they're investing in the founder and his passion and their passion, his or her passion in the actual business that they're trying to work in. Is this person investable in? Can we work with this person? Is this person going to be good with our money that we're investing into this concept? So that plays a big role for the future of the company. That's what I believe anyway at the start.
Definitely. I think I agree with mostly everything you've mentioned. Shahad, what's your take or your opinion on this?
First of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to share my experience. So I think the first thing I would say to really validate who you are. Like, for example, who are the people do you want to meet? What are you good at doing? What gives you energy? What stresses you out? For example, does this actually suit your personality? What's your mission? So ask yourself these valuable questions, and then we'll go to validate the market. Who are you are serving, and why they will buy your product or service? Who's your customer? How much money do these people have? And so on. And then I would say you would also want to validate the channel, how to reach your customers. Where do your customers spend their time? Where do they put their most attention to? And so on. And also validate the product, right? Is this product help solving the problem? What's the market top problems? How you can differentiate the product? And then finally, you would validate the model. How can you make money? Who are how much do they can afford? Are they willing to pay for you? So I think these 5 things, once you validate it, you're gonna start and see how things goes. But I think these are very essential before you even start building your startup.
Okay, great. How about you, Hassan?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see like what's important when you're looking at raising funding for your startup. And I think it depends, right? So some investors look at different stages, some investors look at different sectors, some investors invest for different reasons. So I think the first step of when you're trying to raise funding for a startup is to try and figure out who the most likely investors would be. So that's like, your research day one, right? You don't want to go and reach out to an investor that invests in growth stage businesses in sort of Southeast Asia if you're a seed stage startup in the Middle East. It generally isn't really the right fit, both in terms of sector and stage. So first thing is, do your homework. Second thing is, once you've done your homework and you've outlined sort of the funds that probably have a mandate to invest at the same stage and as you are at and in the same sort of geographies that you're focusing on, the second stage is just, I guess, make yourself, investors don't like to see startups that will just sit around talking and not really executing or doing anything. What they really want to see is that startups are executing, building something. They're gonna achieve what they need to achieve, even without any funding or even without your help. So the best thing to do as a startup is just start building, start executing, start getting things done. And that really, your objective as a startup should not be to fundraise. Your objective as a startup should be to build a business, and fundraising is only to help accelerate sort of that path going forward. So like if I see a founder, they're like, oh, we can't get started because we don't have any money. I know that's not true because I've seen loads and loads of startups that have started with zero money, but they had the team sit and work and get things done. So it's about execution. So first find the right investors, make sure that you're not reaching out to people that have no interest in what you're building. And the second part of it is really try to build a business that investors would be interested in looking at, regardless of whether you're getting an investment or not.
Definitely. I agree with all the points I received from all 3 of you, and I think it is very important what you've mentioned. Having said that, Shahad, after one builds their idea, how do you think they can secure the right amount of funding they need to be able to launch this idea and get it off the ground?
Right. So I really second what Hassan mentioned, and really just first start, and then you will know and learn more what kind of resources do you need. So when you want to see and how much amount you need to raise, I would say begin with an end. See what's your value today and where do you want to reach in value, for example, in 18 months an average, and then translate that to goals, KPIs that you can measure, for example, revenues, monthly recurring revenues, what's the growth rate, how many number of customers or daily users, depending on the product. And then based on that, you will look at yourself today and see, okay, what kind of resources do I need to reach these metrics? When it comes to human capital, when it comes to, for example, marketing, or and you will also calculate these expenses based on historical data. So that's why it's very important to start first before you think about funding, because it's really the goal here is to build this successful business, and then the funds is gonna come and it's gonna help grow it and at a faster pace. So you can use also benchmarks besides the historical data, and then of course you will add 30% as cushion just in case.
Okay, thank you so much, Shahad. I believe this answers the question very well. Do any of you have any additional input or something you would like to share? Hassan, having invested and worked alongside many startups, what are some different strategies you think it's important for one to consider when they are looking for this funding?
So strategies, I guess, like I said, the most important thing is to really focus on building a business, not fundraising for the sake of fundraising. I think that's there's a lot of founders that walk around with a pitch deck for a year and a half, 2 years, and they just never get anywhere. And that's not really what you want to be investing in anyway. Like, what you want to be investing in is, hey, I'm building this thing, whether you like it or not. And if you're part of it, then you can be part of this journey and help me grow. If not, then I'll build this with or without you. It doesn't really make a difference. So I think that's the mindset you need to have when you're a startup. It's not, hey, I need to raise this funding. It's like, hey, I need to build this business. And unfortunately, in some markets, that's not the case. It's like, I'm not going to even quit my job until I have funding, and then I'll quit my job and then I'll start this thing. And that's not something an investor wants to invest in, right? If you don't have the sort of motivation, drive, and passion to see this thing succeed no matter what, then it's not really something that we'll be investing in for sure. So I think that's really the key thing is the change in mindset, is not to say, oh, I can't do this unless I have funding. It's basically, let me see what I can do and what I can achieve and what numbers I can show without any funding. And then funding generally will come after that. It's the wrong approach sometimes that founders have. It's not an easy thing to do fundraising for a startup. It's quite difficult, but there is a lot more funding available now than there was 10 years ago when I got started. There's like one VC fund, and now there's quite a few options to go after, and really go after what's right for your stage, right? If you're an idea stage startup, it's unlikely that you'll be able to raise from a VC fund. Don't even bother. Go and talk to incubators, accelerators, maybe friends and family, people that will believe in you and trust you to get you from idea to product. And then once you have a product, maybe that's when some sort of early stage investors are interested. Maybe that's when you go into an accelerator program to help you get to like some product market fit, some customers, some users. And that's typically when investors would get interested here in this region at least. So, don't come and pitch an investor an idea, because ideas are pretty worthless, honestly. Like I get 10 ideas every couple of hours. It just doesn't mean anything unless I can execute and build something using those ideas.
Definitely. Do you guys have anything else to add to what Hassan has shared? Or are you on the same line? Do you disagree? What do you think is an important strategy for someone to consider in terms of funding?
I completely agree with what Hassan had to say.
Okay, great. So knowing this, Ethby, what do you believe are some breakthroughs and challenges you see being faced when it comes to making the right choice when you're choosing a specific source of funding?
Okay, I think if I explain how I did it, it'll answer a lot of the questions that were being asked, and I think what will be asked. Okay, yeah. I started with an idea. I didn't even understand investment. As the age of 24, working in the bank in Kuwait, I liked the space. I wanted to buy a laundry, but I realized it's not going to make me enough money for me to be satisfied with. So when Talabat.com got sold in Kuwait for that huge amount, it was like it was a breakthrough for apps in the region coming from Kuwait. And it got everyone quickly their appetite up to start building apps, especially in Kuwait at the beginning. And I was like, oh, what industry can we go into? But luckily, no one was looking at laundry at the time. It was very fragmented. So I decided to start the app, and me and my brother realized that we're going to need around 30,000 KD. So that's around 300,000 Emirati dirhams, a bit more, maybe 350. I don't come from a business family. So I had no choice but to take a loan from the bank. So I took a loan from the bank that I work in, which is a pretty huge amount at that age. But I realized if it goes wrong, then I'll be able to pay it off by the age of 30 and then just continue my job or something. So I took the loan. My brother decided to quit his job because one of us had to run it full time. And I decided to continue to pay off the loan and the rent and other costs in terms of marketing and things as we went along. It was a very tough time, to be honest. Very, very, very tough, but it's worked out in the end. We made some mistakes. We misunderstood how much it's going to cost. Like, we built the business, but we didn't realize we're going to need marketing spend and everything. Anyway, long story short, we launched the business and I got invited to this pitch your startup. Obviously, didn't even know what that meant, or wasn't even thinking about investment or anything. The guy had to persuade me to come and pitch my startup. He was like, well, I said, what do I need to come? He said, you need a presentation. I was like, I don't even know how to make a presentation. This is back when I was 24, I'm the age of 30 now. I've been through all that, all the stages of funding since then. So we managed to pitch, and I was very fortunate to get an interest from all the investors. We had 4 minutes and I got interest from all the investors, but there's only one person that I was personally interested in that was on the panel, and that was Mr. Mohammed Jafar, the guy that sold Talabat. This goes next to my next point is, and something that Hassan mentioned, is you've got to find the right people. Mohammed Jafar, understood the marketplace. He understood exactly what needs to be done and how much needs to be spent into building a marketplace, because he'd just done it and exited from one. And he knows how hard it's going to be. So this is why I wanted to partner up with him. And this is why he was interested in doing it with us. But he didn't just come in immediately. It was based on a market study with one of the top 5 firms in the region. And if the numbers come back well, there was an agreement that we were going to go through. And then we went through, alhamdulillah, we are where we are today. But that was at angel level. And then people always said to me is like, you're getting rid of your business, you're selling a chunk of your business very early on in the stage. You've only been through life for 4 months. There's something that I heard, and I truly believe in, you can have a cake that's worth 100 KD or have a slice of a cake that's worth 1 million, 2 million KD. So I definitely wanted to slice. And this wasn't just about the money, it was also about the experience that I'm going to gain from this guy and the people that are going to be working with us to expand. I love the idea. Then after that, it became venture capital as well. So after the bank loan, it became angel. And then after the angel, it went to venture capital. In total, I've received around $24 million we've raised in the last 4 years for Just Clean. And now at the moment, I'm currently pitching for a Series C. So I am currently doing what I'm talking about right now. It is a nightmare. It's not a fun period, as Hassan mentioned. You have a short period of time to make sure you close this deal. It's basically selling your business that you're passionate about. Yes, you're going to get a lot of negativity, and you're also going to get a lot of people that are interested. For me, I feel it is finding the right person at the right time. Look at who's invested in this region, in this space already, from America, from London, in this space as well, in the GCC. It doesn't make sense to go to people that are not interested, that are only going into fintech. It's going to be very hard for them to understand the marketplace or the laundry concept and all that. They may do, it's not wrong to do that, but start with the people that already understand this space, because you've got more chance there. Like, I think you're going to have to be visiting, for example, to close a round, mostly people visit around 30, 40 people with a very small success rate. But then there's no failure in this, because the people that don't invest now could possibly be potential investors in the next round. And building a connection with these people, and it's helping you get out there. You may need a bridge. there's something called a bridge round between this round and the round that's after. These people may come in for the bridge round if you can prove what you said was right. Most people say to you, go for 3 months, 6 months, come back with a sign that you're achieving what you said you're achieving, and I will jump in then as a bridge. So yes, it's a very tough period. We have a few months to finish this round as well. So this is why I was very happy to jump onto this panel when I got invited to it, because it's something I'm currently practicing myself, but at a different stage, and it never gets easier. So I think that may answer a lot of the questions that you're going to ask me anyway.
No, I think you answered it really well, and especially having gone through that and you going through that now, you really gave a feel of how the process works and what it takes for a person to be able to succeed in such a thing or get the right funding. At the end of the day, it's not only about having a good idea, but choosing the right people who are able to get you where you want to go.
And when you get turned down, it doesn't mean that your business isn't good. Some investors are looking for crazy growth. Some investors are looking for profitability. You can't win all the time. Do you know what I mean? When someone says to you, it's just not their cup of tea at the moment. That's not what they're looking for. But it doesn't make you bad. You also learn from a lot of, if there is negativity in these meetings, it's going to prepare you for the next meeting. You can only go stronger and stronger from this negativity. And if you were going to get praised all the time, you're not going to learn through the process. I just want to get stronger because I know the round after the Series C, if we continue, it's going to be even tougher next round as well. And also, after receiving the investment, that's one thing, is actually achieving what you promised these people, because you're going to need these people for the next round. It's very important. So I think I answered a lot of the questions there.
No, I do agree with everything you've mentioned. With this in mind, what are you think essential or the essential available sources for entrepreneurs in terms of funding?
There's many. I think, like Hassan said, now it's not like it was before, but even when I started at the age of 24, there's a lot of options now. Like the doors that are open for me, the people that are willing to sit with me now, I would never have got the chance, I don't think, 5 or 6 years ago. There's a lot of businessmen here that want to jump into the tech, that's old school businesses, and now realizing, especially after COVID as well, that the online business is the way forward. So I believe it's the perfect time to receive investment. And bearing in mind as well, there wasn't a lot of money spent from the investors during the last 2 years because of COVID, and that now they're willing to spend. So they are looking for opportunities. There is a lot of people that are interested in opportunities. But as I mentioned, it depends on what stage you are. Is it taking a loan from a bank? Is it an angel investor, or is it a venture capital? Even crowdfunding. I'm not very familiar with crowdfunding, but I also know that people do tend to go towards crowdfunding as well.
Okay, great.
And to add on that, I would say there is also grant funding that you can get nowadays. A lot of accelerators that they offer some grant funding. Also, you can make revenues, right? With margins, with higher margins. Like in our case, we bootstrapped for almost 16 months, keeping the burn very low. And basically, we generated revenues with the higher margins, profit margins, and this is how we kept on going. So it's really not the first solution. It is actually one of the hardest solutions. So yeah, there's, I think nowadays, a lot of kind of grant funding and accelerators coming.
Okay, since we're on this topic, one of the attendees was asking to give more insight into the different stages of the startup growth. So from starting with the idea to actually implementing it. If you want to like summarize it into 3 or 4 stages, what would you say the 4 or 5 stages of growth of the startup would be?
I could take that maybe, because I think I touched on it a little bit. So honestly, when you have an idea, that's really idea stage. I think that's pretty obvious. So you don't really have anything other than idea. And in that stage, typically, I would not try to fundraise unless you have a track record or you've built and exited a business before. Idea stage is not really where you should be going out and trying to actively fundraise. What you should be trying to do, if you really need funding, the first thing is try to find a team and build a team together that will work together to execute, build the product, and sort of get things launched without you having to spend any money, really. If you can't do that and you really need some funding for that, I think the best option at that point in time is, government grants, competitions, maybe friends and family, but I probably wouldn't really talk to any investors at that stage. It doesn't reflect positively generally if you're just trying to talk to someone and you just have an idea and nothing really been executed. A stage after that is once you've built a product. So you have something in your hand that's a product, it's an app, website, whatever, it exists in real life. And at that stage, what you're trying to raise funding for is to try and get to market. But generally, if you've got a product, you should be able to try and get to market anyway without really too much funding. But at that stage, accelerators are pretty active in supporting sort of get companies that have products all the way up to sort of product market fit. And there's a lot of them all around the region right now. Incubators, other programs, things like that, that'll help you get to the next stage. Generally, when is the right time to talk to investors is when you have the product launched, you have some customers, some users. That's generally sort of the way we look at it, is sort of the seed stage. Everything before it is really pre-seed, and seed is once you've really got a product, some customers, some users, maybe some revenues as well. And then you keep growing and scaling. You'll probably get to Series A after that. If you're generating revenues, I guess, of $100,000 a month, or it depends on the industry, it could be $50,000 a month. You'll generally raise a Series A of a couple $1 million. After that, it's growth stage, Series B, C, and everything after that. It fragments much more at the later stage. But that's sort of when you're getting started, those are the phases that you're looking at. And I would try really not to reach out to VCs or anything like that. You can talk to them friendly and all of that, but in general, it's not the best use of your time. You should be building that business. And once you have a product out the door, you have some customers, some revenues, that's when I would probably start talking to investors.
Okay, that's really great. I don't know if Shahad or Athvi have anything specific to add upon it, but I think you summarized it in a very great way and very easygoing way. So far, I think you guys gave great input. There are some questions lined up for the audience. Since there are many, I think I'm gonna dive into the questions and then they will cover most of the things we had lined up to discuss. We received one question where they asked, when you are living in another country, what do you think is the best way to get funding quickly? So if you're not in a place where there are many, I'm guessing, investors, how would you approach getting funding?
I would probably build my business and then try and get funding. If you've got your numbers, then generally people will pay attention. So yeah, same sort of thing I've been saying. I don't think it makes a difference in this day and age where you are. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But I think what's important is when you're looking at where you are is you're reaching out to the right investors. So if you are focusing on a certain market, you look at investors that have said, we look at this market. If you go and talk to investors that have zero interest in any part of that region, and you keep bugging them or whatever, it won't get you anywhere, and actually is a negative sign than anything else. So really, if you're working in a single market, try and find investors that have an interest in that market, and try not to spam or just overall just try to bug investors that have zero interest in what you're doing.
Okay. Another question.
FB has something to add, I think.
Oh, okay.
I agree with Hassan. For me, example, today I'm in Dubai. On Thursday I'll be in Kuwait pitching, and then on Monday, I think, or Tuesday, I'll be in Saudi Arabia, Dammam and Riyadh. And so it doesn't. I don't think this day and age it matters anymore. People are investing in your region, not alone your country. So there's your country, there's your area, then there's your region. I don't think investors are like that anymore, where they just invest in one country. They are open-minded. They do, if the country you're operating in is promising and is showing growth and everything, it doesn't matter regardless if they're in London or from New York, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah. So yes, I agree with what Hassan says.
Great, thank you. I have a question directed to Shahad. Can you give us a bit more insight or give us more details about your experience in getting the funding to launch your own startup?
Yes, so when I first started, I built, I first, as Hassan said, build your team. So this was my focus, how can I get this product into market and make revenue with the founding team? So I looked for founders that complement my experience, founders that can help me bring the product into market and start generating revenue, improving, approving the concept and the demand. So once we reached there, we started generating revenues. Then the current resources became a bottleneck in order to do more. Then I started looking at to investors, and basically what I started to do is first the goals we want to reach, and then starting from the end, and then what kind of investors, because we do look for funds plus the value. So what kind of value and plus do we need in order to reach these specific goals? So based on that, we created a list of investors, and then we started talking to them, and also with networking, because it's also very important to keep the network, even though you're not asking for investments. Just keep up the network, make investors just know about you, keep updating them, because when it's the right time, you won't need to start from the beginning. Class, you already established your business. Everyone knows about it, and they're up to date, because you can also see if they are adding value even before they invest, right? Because you will sense that, you will build this relationship. It's a long-term relationship, so you need to make sure who are you partnering with, your values are aligned, people are really believing in you and the vision, and and willing to take this challenge. So I think after that, once you start talking, and from my experience, luckily we were oversubscribed because we already been bootstrapped, because we already improve the concept. There is the demand, we showed that, so it was much easier for us to do it. So I do recommend, again, I say what Hassan said is really because I had actually since we launched, after around 6 months, we had two options: whether we focus on getting more traction and getting more revenue, or start fundraising. And we got this advice, focus on actually getting some deals with customers where you can cover your expenses. So I took this advice, and actually it gave us another 6 months of runway. So I think it's not the first solution, for sure. Look for other alternatives. If it was the only solution, then go for it.
Great, thank you so much. I have another question for Hassan. What do you think is the easiest way to be able to reach a VC or the investor? And what makes this VC or investor be more interested, for example, in one startup rather than the other? After you look into their profile, what would be one thing that would stand out to you more or make you more interested in investing in one?
Okay, I mean, the way the VC industry generally works is through referrals. So if you know someone that knows the VC and can refer you in, I think that helps quite significantly, because it gives a point that this is, there's some sort of social trust that can be gained through that. Us, we're trying to be a bit different. So for us, anyone who applies to our website, we have a formal process that we sort of go through, and everyone gets a chance to talk to us. And it's like trying to be a bit more democratic in our process, I guess, just to see if we can help founders that maybe don't have access to sort of us. I mean, we're pretty accessible. Like, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn or on Facebook, on Twitter, or whatever. And most VCs are pretty responsive when it's an interesting deal, so it's not that bad. But honestly, still works the old way, which is find someone who can make a referral. And so the other VCs would then also, if it's someone that they like and trust, they'll take the call just because they, they don't want to upset that person, and so you'll get that call in general. So referrals generally do work pretty well, but a lot of funds these days are pretty open to talking to people, even if they haven't been referred by another party that they trust. But it does help. It kickstarts things quite well. And then honestly, if it's an idea, even if it's a trusted referral, I'll be like, I'll email them back and like, why do you want me to talk to this person? They don't really have anything. And so, but in general, like if it looks half decent and it's referred by someone that I sort of trust, I'll take the call and figure it out. But what makes one deal better than another is the founders, I think, that have a sense of, like Shahid said, of getting things done, of executing, building the business, rather than founders that are passive and not really that engaged or passionate about what it is they're building, and they're just really trying to figure out how to fundraise rather than what they're trying to build. That makes a big difference.
Okay, great. I think I agree with you. It's more important to have the drive and passion to do something rather than just do it of where it's gonna lead you in terms of success. If you have the drive and passion, then I think you can be successful no matter what. And that's my opinion. Another question, when you're ready to find investors, or you're ready to find an investment for your startup, where do you think, or what's the best way you have to connect with an investor?
Do you guys want to take this and figure out how you did it? I think FB already mentioned how you figured it out.
Sure.
So how do you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah, sure. So it's through intros really helps. Like just fellow founders who are ahead of you, just ask them for intros. Everyone wants to help. I think in this ecosystem precisely, I realized how people are really willing to help, and because really actually the more you help, the more you will be helped in the future. So I think that's one approach. And then the second is directly just talk with people and ask for help, right? You won't ask for advice, you will get fund. Ask for a fund, you will get an advice. Usually they say that. So really just ask for help, and then if this person thinks that he can add value to you, he will help you, and then build this relationship, and automatically the fund will follow, because it's not really the value, right? Money at the end, it comes and goes. There's other types of values that you really need to build this business.
Okay, great. So another question, I think you guys can decide between yourselves, what kind of person makes a successful entrepreneur in your eyes? I don't know if FB wants to take it.
It's a tough answer, because you've got to look at yourself in the mirror and try and answer that one. Like, no one likes to praise themselves, do they? No, I think people look at the passion that you've got, not just for yourself, and it's for the industry, that's the problem you're trying to solve. You've got to really show that you believe and understand what you're doing, because you're going to get hammered with questions. Investors are very clever. They're not just going to give you $1 or $2 million easily. You've got to be fully prepared. I think it's the way you pitch. I think there's a point we haven't spoke about here as well, is your pitch deck, getting yourself ready to go to investors. If you think you're at a stage where you're ready to go and invest, you've got to ask yourself, how am I going to pitch this? It's basically selling your business out to go there. You've got to be a good salesperson, first of all, to be able to sell your business to someone. You've got to be able to come across and show exactly that you know what you're doing. There's a structure that pitch decks work in that, and in approaching people as well, sending them teasers and how it works and everything. There's a technique to it. There's no right or wrong way doing it, but you don't want to lose any chance here, especially reaching out to someone that doesn't know you, that's not from a referral. There's about, I think it's 5% something is, I read the other day, is successful of even getting a meeting or even getting a phone call from someone. So how you present yourself as a person, how you present yourself as a founder, the passion that you've got, and how you present your business as well, that says a lot. That's what people are looking at first and at first before they even go into evaluations. And then there's another part of it. Don't over-evaluate yourself. Yeah. You've got to evaluate yourself fairly. You can't lie to anyone. These people are very experienced that you're dealing with. You'll get caught out along the road. So come across as very honest. If you don't know how to answer a question, say I don't know and I can get back to you. No one's going to disrespect that, to be honest. Being honest, passionate, and take yourself to the meeting. That's what people are looking for. That's what they're going to be investing in at the end of the day. Don't sugarcoat anything.
Okay, great. I really agree with what you've mentioned. I have one more question that was directed to Hassan. Someone's asking if you can help them understand more the level of IP ownership that a VC expects of tech-enabled startups.
Most VCs, so there's a couple of different things, right? Are you building IP that's patented and all this sort of stuff? Honestly, I couldn't care less, unless it was like really, really important and very niche sort of hardware or deep tech. Patents, I've seen so many people with patents that don't really mean anything, they don't go anywhere, right? It's not really that important. Can you and even if you do get a patent, like what protection does that really give you? Someone in China will go and just do exactly the same thing as you're doing. Are you going to go to sue them? Because you don't have any money as a startup. So what are you have a patent that you can enforce. So like, what's the big deal? I think at some stage, basically, you might need to start patenting some stuff, but in general, like at the early stages, what you really need to be doing is out executing your competition, not sort of working too much on this patents and stuff like that. Unless, like I said, it's like super niche hardware or like something where, you know, patents do make a difference in deep tech. So yeah, I wouldn't spend too much time on that. The thing that I do care about is that the IP that's been developed for the business is with the business, not with the founders. So generally VCs will ask for an IP assignment that says that whatever's been built for the business is owned by the business, not by the founders. Other than that, like, it's just not, patents and stuff don't really, meh.
Okay, great. I have a question to Shahad and FB. Can you give us some examples of failures that you faced when you were looking to get funding and some reasons to support that? If you want FB to go first and then Shahad, or Shahad first, it's up to you.
I think I'll let Shahad go first. I've got to think about this one.
I would say when I first actually started fundraising, I wanted to raise an amount. And then basically, I asked, you know, how much the valuation should be. And from what I know is actually VCs, they're the ones who should value your company. It's not your job as a founder to value. So, and then when I asked, you know, they're like, but you're too early to do that. So I had to basically come up with a number and just try, right? Because I didn't get an answer. So basically, once we started, we realized, so I wouldn't say it's more, as a learning. So I took the feedback. I talked with VCs and with investors, and I told them this is what we want to raise, and this is the value. What do you think? And I know, it's your call. You should value me. So tell me what's your feedback. So they're like, no, we do see, the value is less than that. You need to work with that. So basically, I took this. I said yes. I agree because you know better. Your experience. This is your job. It's not our job as founders. So I took this advice, and then what I did is we changed the strategy of funding. Instead of raising the full amount, we cut the amount, and then we said let's do more traction, and let's after that we can continue the fundraise. So this is what we did. So I wouldn't call it a failure, but it's more of a learning, and it worked very well. So now I'm still in it. Like we finished the first one where we're doing the traction, and we're continuing very soon, opening the continuation of the round. But this is what we did after taking advice. I didn't answer the question, but this is my experience.
No, it was great. Thank you for sharing it with us. How about you, FB? Do you have any failure story that stands out in terms of your growth?
Yeah, I think if I failed, I don't think I'd be here today in terms of closing each round. Just, I mean, I think the company would be existing anymore if I failed with that round. And I hope I don't fail this round either. But the thing is in terms of failure, I think I'll now narrow it down a bit. I think once I underestimated the meeting, didn't prepare my numbers, didn't sleep well, and went in there and I think I was thrown around everywhere. I think like that was a lesson learned, that to prepare very well. And sometimes nerves can get the better of you. You can be very good, you know your numbers, you know everything, but when you get there the day, you're not confident at all, you're just having a bad day. And that's what I go back to the point that I mentioned earlier. Don't lose your chance. Getting the chance, you've got to seize the moment in terms of your pitch, in terms of your numbers. You have to know your numbers. These people, if you're expecting to take an amount of money off someone, how can they invest in someone that is not confident, that does not know the numbers, and then is not even passionate about the business they're working in? Because this is ABC when you're going to investors. So I think maybe the ones I was not prepared enough, I think I don't want to talk about that too much because I don't like talking about it too much. But yeah, I think it's not being prepared. I think that's the worst thing that can happen to you.
Okay,
in terms of failure of businesses, I could sit here all day and talk about my failures, but investment, this is a different thing.
Okay, great. I have a final question for you all because I think we're getting close to running out of time. What is one piece of advice you have for new founders on what they should do and when they're building their idea or building their startup? Something you wish someone told you when you were just started, or just anything that you feel from your experiences that you've learned that you feel is important to share?
I think sorry, Azmi.
Go ahead.
I would say just start and then you will learn. You can never learn just by saying, what can I do? Just take the first step and everything will follow. You will learn along the way. This is what I would advise.
I agree with Shahad completely. I don't think, if you want to say something's not going to be easy, there's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, there's going to be a lot of stressful nights, there's going to be a lot of times where you get knocked down. If you're having a good day, it doesn't last. There's always a good start to a day and a bad ending, or a bad ending and a bad start and a good ending. It's very tough. The people tend to like to be called an entrepreneur and you're a business person, you own a business and that, but they don't seem to understand half of the stuff you're going through. Some people could get affected mentally and physically in life through the journey that they're going through. But it can only make you stronger as a founder if you've got it in you to continue throughout the journey. Also, dealing with investors is very tough. Even when you've received the funding, that's one thing. But the board meetings, the monthly board meetings, the stress that you get put through, and the questions, the numbers that you have to prove, the promises you have to fulfill, the team that you have that are relying on you, they're relying on the funding you get to continue their lives, the pressure, it does get to you, but you've got to be very strong mentally before you go into this journey. If you don't have it in you, I always say to people, stick to your day job and don't start. I wish people would have told me about how tough it's going to be. I think I ignored that. I think I completely ignored that, and I was just like, I'm going to do this. I'm strong. I can do this. I can get through anything. But there is tough days, and as a founder, it can be very lonely. You've got to put on a strong face in front of your team, in front of your colleagues, and everything, because they look up to you. You're the guy that supports their livelihoods, and that all runs through your head when you're going to each round. It runs through your head on a day-to-day basis. It's tough, but that's what an entrepreneur is all about.
Yeah, I really agree with you, Adbi. And really, the experiences really shape you and make you who you are today. So it is very tough that you need to be strong with your team, with investors, with your family. You want to show them that you're okay. So it's really like you and yourself, you need to deal with it. So it's a tough journey. Just be prepared for it. Of course, it has its payoff as long as there is a cause and there's something behind it. Yeah, it's going to definitely shape you and make you much stronger.
And do it for the right reason as well. Do it for the right reason. Do it for yourself, your family, your team, the brand, the company name. Don't do it for anyone else. At the end of the day, you're going to be left with you and yourself at the end. And prove people that doubted this industry, that doubted that this would work and that there's no better feeling than that, is being able to smile at the end of it all.
Great. How about you, Hassan? Do you have any piece of advice for young entrepreneurs who are looking to start?
Honestly, after what FB and Chad said, there's really not much to add. I think they got it in a nutshell. It is one of the hardest things that you will ever do in your life. It is not the cool thing that you see in all the media and stuff. It is nerve-wracking and difficult and not easy, and there's a lot of things to deal with. So yeah, after what they said, I don't really have much more to add.
Okay, great. So I think we're running out of time. So I'm just gonna finalize this. It was wonderful to have you guys as part of our webinar. I really enjoyed listening to your insights, going through your experiences with you, and for your time and your contribution in joining us. Thank you all to all the attendees who attended. Thank you for your questions. I'm really sorry we didn't have the time to answer them all, but hopefully for future webinars will be available. Stay tuned for our upcoming webinars, and thank you to the speakers again for your time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you. Best of luck, everyone.